All right. Welcome everyone to the Skyline Hearts exam revision series and to the EAL masterclass for this year. I will be your lead tutor for the day. My name is Yana, but we will do proper introductions in a little bit. I'm very excited to have you all today, and I can't wait for our awesome session. Before we officially begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we gathered on today and pay my respects to the elders past and present, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and hope of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the nation. And I will also like to say a big thank you to UBS and all the UBS volunteers who have helped and are helping throughout the exam revision series, and we could not do it without them and without their support. All right, awesome. So as I said before, I will be your lead tutor for the day. I am the Skyline Hearts lead EAL tutor throughout the year for our weekly tutoring. I graduated in 2019 from South Auckland College, and I am currently studying psychology at Monash University. That's my third year this year. Very excited to graduate. I really love everything EAL. I really love to read books. I used to speak before I came to Australia. I came here in 2015. And yeah, I'm very excited to have you all today, as I said before as well. And I will now hand over to Azara to introduce herself as well.
Hi everyone, I am Azada, a first-year commerce student at Deakin University. I graduated from Northern Bay College in 2021, and I'll be here as an assistant tutor with Yana today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Azara. Azara is amazing. She has been helping me throughout the year, and she graduated with an awesome score in EAL last year as well. She's a superstar. All right, just some Zoom basics while we're here today. It's a Zoom webinar, not a meeting, which means that you will only be able to see and hear us, but we won't be able to see you, but we will be monitoring the chat. So you only use the chat for immediate questions or like tech difficulties or when you're asked to participate. But how we'll do it today is you will participate through Mentimeter, which we will show you the code. Oh, actually, the code is in this slide as well. It's 35564669. If you want to go in there and just have a look, go into www.menti.com and enter this code, just so we're ready, because there's a question coming up next for you guys. Yeah, that would be amazing. Go in and try it now. And then in the event that there is a problem with Zoom, you use the original link you were used to access the event. And if it can be used, sit tight and we will be sending you an update via email, so we will know. Awesome. So is everyone in Mentimeter? Because in 1 second, we will be doing a question. All right. So first things first, let me go through the agenda and session outline of today. So this session is not designed for you to learn new things because it's a revision session. So we will be consolidating everything you've learned. If you have any gaps, yes, you will learn some new things. And what I'm hoping for us to have done after this is for you to just say, okay, I'm ready to ace the exam now. I can go in confident. I know how to answer all the questions, and I have now remembered how to do it best. And yeah, basically say I am ready, I have revised, and I will do great. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go through analytical text response first. We'll go through the key criteria, the types of prompts there are in a text response. We'll go through how to build a contention, what kind of structure your paragraphs and your essays should have. And we'll do a sample text breakdown, which is awesome. And I find that that's the most useful thing you can do to learn how to write an essay. And then, of course, we'll be talking about themes, symbols, and motifs. We will then move on to language analysis and listening task, and we'll go through all the essentials from each task as well. All right, now, before we jump in to the actual session, can we all go into Mentimeter and enter this code? And the question that we have over there is, how are you feeling about the EAL exam? And this is just a test. So let me see. We have 2 people in there. Confident? Nervous? Yeah. That's completely normal, guys. I think I just need to change to my hotspot. I think my video is getting glitchy. So give me 1 second, but everyone enter how you're feeling right now about the exam. Awesome. I hope my video is better now. Azara, give me a thumbs up in the chat if it is. Is my video better now? Give me a thumbs up, Azara. All right, awesome. I have nervous, I've worried, but I have also got confident, prepared, ready, and excited, which is awesome. And I love to see people being ready already. But don't worry if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling worried. That's why we're here today. And I hope that everyone will be feeling amazing before we leave the session and ready to go into the exam. You will never stop feeling nervous, I think, but it's a good thing. Stress is a good thing. It helps you prepare. Awesome. All right. It's so good to see people feeling confident, though. Let's jump into the session and see our first thing for today. So we have a typical performance in its range. This is basically the marking rubric that has been given to us by VCEE, just to see what kind of text response essays get the full marks, the best marks. So in the very high range of everything, in the first one, we have sophisticated understanding of the world of the text through an insightful analysis of the explicit and implied values it expresses and how the author has responded to different contexts, audiences, and purposes. A lot of words that are like, okay, what did I just read? So what we'll do is we will, instead of reading this and being like, all right, take, we will see what it actually means. So the VCEE task description is to identify, discuss, and analyze how the features of selected texts create meaning and how they influence interpretation. So what does create meaning and influence interpretation mean? It means that you and I and Azara and everyone else, when we read a text, we will see different things because we interpret it in different ways. So how does each person think differently of the different elements presented? So for a good high scoring analysis, you will be able to identify, a group of people who will interpret specific elements of the text this way. So in identifying and analyzing explicit and implied ideas, what does this mean? There will be ideas that are explicitly presented. So you will be able to see and read what they are and what they mean, but others will be implied through something we call symbolism, themes, motifs, metaphors, and other techniques, which is all the things that we will be talking about today. So you need to be able to identify and analyze both. in a text and examine ways in which readers are invited to respond to text. So it's not so passive, it's also active reading because you're invited to respond to it. So what this means is authorial intent. And authorial intent is how is the author of the text, so let's say Euripides, for example, positioning the audience to feel. So through the use of this and this mechanism, they're positioning you to feel a certain way. It can be feel sad, guilty, it can be different things, or putting you into perspective and into thinking something. For high scoring response, this also needs to be explored. And I'll show you how to do this in later on in this presentation. So they develop and justify their own detailed interpretations of text. So justifying means always using evidence to explain what you're saying. So why are you saying what you're saying? And the evidence goes into your paragraph in a TEAL structure. So topic, sentence, evidence, elaboration, and linking back to the topic. Now, there are some things that you don't do in text response in order to get this high scoring mark that you want. So don't be dismissive of portions of a topic, of a prompt. So you need to answer everything, and don't rewrite it to suit your own approach. So don't memorize an essay and say, all right, now every prompt I get, I can answer because I can just tweak it a little bit. No, don't do that. And don't list examples without analyzing them. So don't forget to elaborate. Don't ignore the instruction in the question. So if it says, do you agree? You have to answer that. If it says discuss, you have to answer that. Do not learn an essay, as I said before, don't memorize it. And don't ignore the topic chosen. All right, yeah, I don't think any one of you will do that, but I think it's better to state it than leave it unsaid. So don't focus on something else that's outside of the topic. All right, amazing. And that leads us to the first official section of this presentation, which is types of prompts. So what types of prompts, of topics, or whatever you want to call it, questions you will get in the exam will tell you more about how to answer it. So I just wanted to go through and show you some of these. So first type is a theme-based prompt. And I think this is my favorite one because there's so much analysis you can do on this one. So for example, in After Darkness, we have, in After Darkness, racism affects everyone's life. Discuss. So the theme given here is racism. What do you do when you're given this type of prompts? You need to brainstorm and plan towards the theme that has been mentioned up here. So racism and any others that you think might be linked to the topic. But the thing is, you have to focus your whole essay in around racism and how it affects everyone's life. So you need to find examples that relate to this. And something you can do to help you is highlight the keyword. Definitely highlight this one, and also anything else that might be relevant. So racism is, but also how it affects everyone's life. Someone in the chat is asking if you can have access to the slides. Yes, you definitely do. Just give me a second to confirm where you will get that, and someone will get back to you. Now, if you have any questions, sorry, I forgot to mention, if you have any questions while we're doing this, while we're going through the presentations, go through Mentimeter and you will find a Q&A in there. And yeah, don't forget to use this code. Awesome. Now, the next type is character-based prompts. For example, the Crucible. We have John Proctor is overwhelmed by a sense of shame. Do you agree? Now, this one, someone can argue that it might be both a character-based one and a what's shame? I think it leads to a theme. It leads to a path of a theme-based prompt. But because it's speaking specifically about one character, it's a character-based one. So what you need to do to answer this effectively is just relate everything to this specific character and discuss how his actions are influenced and interrelated with other events and actions that are presented in the prompt. Like, how is he overwhelmed by a sense of shame? Don't just say how he's overwhelmed. You need to answer everything in the prompt. The next one we have is a how-based prompt. So, for example, in 9 days, we have, how does 9 days explore the connections that keep people together? So when you're asked, how does the author do these things, you are meant to discuss meta-language. So what is a meta-language? It's basically language talking about language or literary techniques. So you want to speak about, if it's a book, you want to speak about symbolism. You want to speak about if it's in first, third person, etc. So how does the author do these things? How do they present a point? Using which elements? So what themes and symbols and motifs are they using? And how do they make the audience feel? So you're meant to discuss all of these how things. And then we have a meta-language based prompt, which is basically the same as a how, but it brings like symbols, themes, and motifs straightforward. Like it asks you, how does Satrapi use symbols to understand her changing world? So it's asking how, but it's also bringing forward what specific thing they want. They want meta language. So you're just meant to discuss the literary techniques and meta language speaking about language. And the last one, which is also a very good one for just discussing interpretation, going into a thorough discussion, is a quote-based prompt. For example, and this is from the text Extinction, you've got to believe in your own species, Piper, in the human capacity to achieve great things. How does the play explore Harry's idea? So what you're meant to do is interpret the themes and issues. So again, we have themes, symbols, interpret the themes and issues that are addressed in the quote and bring them into discussion. So what have we got here? We have believe in your own species. So we have hope in the human capacity to achieve great things. We have hope. So you need to contextualize it and use it in your analysis. So you're not meant to say, okay, this quote means this and this. No, what you're meant to do is identify what kind of context it comes from, because you will know the book. So you will know when it was said, you'll know what happened in that time, and you will know the themes and issues that surround it, which you will need to use. All right, awesome. So which leads us to our first, actually kind of second, but first activity for the day. So go into Menti 35, 56, 46, 9. And let's see what we have got here. I have some questions for you. All right, let me see. Can I wait a little bit more for people to join? All right, waiting for 3 people to join us. It's a quick quiz, just for us, consolidate what we just learned. All right, what kind of prompt is this? Discuss the role of poetry and use the lives of the characters in the golden age. It's an example of a theme-based prompt. Yes, guys, I think we need to stop the music. It's not helping. All right, I'm just gonna stop the music. All right, sorry about this. Okay, so it is an example of a theme-based prompt. Let's see why it's not a character-based prompt. Discuss the role of poetry and music in the lives of the characters in the Golden Age. It's not an example of a character-based prompt because it's not asking us to answer specifically about one character. So if it said, discuss the role of poetry and music in the life of blah, 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 a specific character, it would be a character-based one. But it's not, because instead it's asking us to discuss the role of poetry and music generally in the text and in the character's life. So all characters. So it's a theme-based prompt. And it's not a quote-based prompt because it's not giving us a quote to answer. All right, amazing. I can see some people joined us just now. If you did, go into www.menti.com and use the code 3556469 to join our little quiz. We have one more question for our first activity. And I'm just going to post the link to the presentation if you want to press that and come in more quickly. I'll wait another minute for you to do that, and then I'll move into the next question. All right, we already have someone in the Q&A. Okay, I think what we'll do, guys, is before our break, we'll go in and answer some questions you have put there for us. All right, awesome. I think if anyone has trouble joining, let us know in the chat. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to move on to the next question of the quiz. All right, next slide, question 2. What kind of prompt is this? Oh, we already talked about that, but that's all right. How does Satrapi use symbols to understand her changing world? What is it? No, we just talked about it, guys. So it's a how-based prompt and a meta-language based prompt because it's asking us, how does Satrapi use symbols to understand her changing world? So it's asking us about meta-language and about how okay, so I am not familiar with all texts, but I can see how this one confused you because of the name it has in here. And because you also might not be familiar and think that this is like a character-based prompt. Okay, so let's talk about it a little bit. When you see how and when you say symbols, that directly leads you to meta-language and how-based prompt. And Satrapi is the author. So that's why it's not a character-based prompt. Sorry if that was a bit confusing, guys. But I hope that clears it up a little bit for you. All right, next up, let's actually give me 1 second. Because I believe this was all for our first activity. All right, awesome. Let's jump back to our presentation, guys. and go into section 1.1. And now we'll be talking about building a contention and formulating your arguments. And now when you hear contention, arguments, I think you're thinking, okay, easy things, contention is what I think, it's just me speaking. But in reality, there are some things you need to take to have a good contention. So let's have a look into what these are. So first things first, a contention is your view of the text in response to your prompt. So answering the question that have been provided to you while saying to what extent do you agree with this or do you disagree with what has been said in the prompt. Now, which parts of the study design are relevant to your contention? We have detailed knowledge and understanding of the selected text demonstrated appropriately in response to the task. So this one is the first key point. You need to respond to it appropriately and so that you have developed detailed knowledge of it. Development in the writing of a coherent and effective structure in response to the task, and control in the use of expressive and effective language appropriate to the task. So everything that are like relating to the task, speak about the prompt. All right, now steps to writing to answering a prompt successfully and to writing a good contention. So first is successfully answering your prompt, which is why I showed you the types of prompts first, and I'm doing this second. So you need to identify which one of the categories does your prompt belong to. Is it a how-based? Is it a theme-based prompt? And what are the keywords in the prompt? This will help you stay in the topic and answer the correct question rather than, you know, trying to fit all other information in. What is your stance? So what do you believe? Do you agree? Do you disagree? There is no right question, but people used to say, people that write good essays say partially agree. Yeah, so partially agree, I think, would be the way to go, because you will be presenting both views. But if you're definitely set to saying agree or set to saying disagree, this is all right too. You can do that as well, just as long as you can justify it. Don't explicitly say I agree or I disagree. What you should do instead is show how you feel by using the text to highlight your opinion. And I'll show you what I mean in a second when we will be doing examples. But what I'm talking about is, don't say, I agree with this prompt. Instead, you should say, blah, 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 these symbols are used to show us this and this. So use your contention as an umbrella from which your body paragraphs will fall under. So your contention will be one sentence, and then your three topic sentences, so your three arguments, will flow after this. Step 2 is to come up with your arguments. So what points are you going to make in your body paragraphs? You need to think of that while you're planning your essay and before you go in to actually write it, because if you're thinking of it while you're writing it, chances are it will take you much longer. So settle on your points and write your topic sentences, which should outline the content that you will be presented, and a good topic sentence should detail an idea that can be drawn from your contention. So if they cannot connect to your contention, it's probably not a very good topic sentence. So everything needs to interconnect. So what you should not do is don't focus solely on one character, except for character-based prompts. But then again, you will need to talk about more things. What you should do instead is focus on the context, on themes, symbols, and conventions. So everything in the text, everything. And then through your topic sentences, clearly indicate what you will be discussing in the paragraph. This helps your essay and it gives you better flow as well. Step 3 to building a contention is adhering to your prompt. So the key to adhering to your prompt, and be careful in this sentence, forming a relationship between the material given to you, so prompt, your adopted contention, your point of view, and the topic sentences which headline your evidence and justification. So these three, prompt, contention, and topic sentences, interconnect. Think about it that way. Your prompt is the avenue through which you form your stance. Your contention is the basis of your entire essay. So it shows us what will be in your essay. Is it a yes? Is it a no? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And your topic sentences are opening statements written with the purpose of helping you develop a discussion and also helping the examiners or the reader understand what's going to be in the paragraph. All right, awesome. So any questions you might have about contention and adhering to your prompt, etc., go in here and you can put them in Menti, and we will be answering them before we go into our break later on. All right, which leads us to section 1.2, and I think everything was building towards this, and this is very, very important. So what we talked about so far was sort of like leading into your essay, and this will be your essay. So we will talk about paragraph structure and breakdown of sample text. All right, so we saw what we need to do to answer our prompts. We saw the VCEE key criteria for your essay, and now let's see how to write your essay. So as every essay, what you need to include is an introduction, at least 3 body paragraphs, and your conclusion. Let's have a look at what should be included in your introduction. You need to have a brief mention of the setting of the text. This can be just mentioning the name of the text and the author, or depending on how relevant it is to the topic. So if it's asking you, talk about what this means to the people in that era, you might need to say more. But depending on how relevant it is, some background information as well. You need to reword the topic. So speak about the prompt a little bit. What is it asking you and how is it relevant to the text you're discussing, but not directly answering this question. So more through a discussion. And then, of course, your contention. Do you agree or disagree? And your 3 main points or your 3 arguments supporting or disproving the prompt. So why do you think that what you think? So why is this your contention? You need to answer that in your 3 main points. Let's have a look of a sample introduction, and let's break it down a little bit and see how this has been done well here. So discuss the role of poetry and music in the lives of the characters in the Golden Age. If you haven't read the text, that's completely fine, because you'll be able to understand through just where everything needs to go. So, set in the time during the outbreak of the polio and World War II, John London's historical and coming-of-age novel, The Golden Age. So you see the brief mention of topic here, and over here, it is relevant that they have talked about the time it's been set, because they might want to speak about poetry and music during that time, and they want us to know that, it's set then. Explores the significant role of poetry and music in assisting characters. This is rewarding the topic. And then the contention is basically everything after this, because it says discuss the role of it. So it plays a significant role to overcome the traumatized memories of the past and discover new fulfillment in life. This is the contention and the main points together, because in the prompts that asks us to discuss something, and they're not asking us if we agree or if we disagree, that's how we can see all of them. London suggests that the importance of poetry is explored through the characters' lenses in a way to help them cope with stress and overcome the tragic past. So you can see here another main point that they will discuss. And moreover, London illustrates that music acts as a catalyst to help characters regain a sense of belonging. So all of this will be further explored in the body paragraphs. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Look at what's included in your body paragraph now. Of course, you have your topic sentence, which is one of your arguments, and then you have the evidence. So you have your argument and why do you argue this? Why do you think this? And elaborating on that. So discussing it more and going into further discussion about this and linking back to the topic. So the link back to the topic will be what will be keeping your paragraphs and your contention and your prompt all connected throughout the essay. And I think there has been a slight mistake here, and this is saying the same as the introduction, but we can change that and have the updated up. All right, awesome. So let's have a look at this body paragraph here and how and where in the paragraph we can see everything we just talked about. So the music is depicted as an indispensable tool in finding a sense of belonging. When there is no music, character is unable to feel or hope. So we can see the argument here, and let's see which argument is this. Hope and yeah, this one, music. Hope and sense of belonging. So arriving in Australia as a war refugee, Ida's hatred and bitterness towards this foreign land is revealed in her assertion that there is no place for a serious musician in Perth. So we can see all the evidence. So they're recalling things that happened and quotes. So this is where you should put your quotes. And you can do that. And the way to do this is to incorporate them in your sentences rather than saying, this was said here, and because this was said, it shows us blah, blah, blah. So incorporate them. For example, memories of her stunning performance at the Academy and the past recognition of her talent, Ida, and making her increasingly cynical and unforgiving, like a bird who refused to sing. So after this, we will have a discussion of evidence and elaboration. So however, Ida, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read this whole thing because some of you guys might not have read the text and it won't make sense, but I just want to show you where everything goes. And as you can see, they're coming back to some evidence over here, elaboration and more evidence and elaboration, and at the end linking back to the topic. So thereby London reveals a significant role music plays in building connection of the war victims and the land they migrate to. So let me also just say that this essay was a VCE high scoring response. So that's why it's been put here for you guys to get as an example. And also just to talk about this as well, please know that for EAL, you might see some minor grammatical errors and mistakes, and the examiners don't really go crazy over them as they would do for English. So for example, we can see here the music or character is unable. So it's really common for this to happen, and still this is considered a high scoring response. So if this was one of your questions or something you had in mind, know that it's not the end of the world if you're not the best at grammar or not the best at vocabulary. Just try your best, and yeah, try your best, and the examiners are not so harsh on us on that. And then you have your conclusion. So what's to be included in your conclusion? We have restating your contention and summarizing and paraphrasing your main points. So ultimately, London in the Golden Age explores the important role poetry and music plays in assisting characters to not only overcome the past tragic memories, but also develop different perspectives of the death of the world, of the death and the world. From the portrayal of art, London admires the role of poetry and music in the lives of characters, where where he helps them discover new fulfillment in life. So, paraphrasing the main point. So, what was it that you stated before? Restating contention and just paraphrasing it a little bit. So you don't say the same thing twice. Say it, but a little bit differently. And this leads us to section 1.3 and the end of text response, which is themes, symbols, and motifs, which is very important for your discussion in the text as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to see what they are and how you can incorporate them in your paragraphs. Okay, first things first, what is a theme? A theme is an idea that arises from the key elements in the text. So it's implied, it's not explicitly said. For example, a very, very common one is love, for instance. So the author won't say love is relevant in this and the couple loves each other very much. They will show it to you. Remember this? Implied ideas in the text. All right, now what I want you to do is jump back into Mentimeter. Actually, just leave it open in your computers. And let's have a look. I have a word cloud for us here. I want you to tell me which ones are some very common themes in movies that you can think of. Let's see if this is the right one. Okay, we had one more left in this activity. What kind of prompt is this? Although Frank is confined to a hospital, his world expands in many ways. Discuss. If anyone is in, you can answer it if you want. It's a character-based prompt, correct? Why is it not a quote-based prompt, guys? Because it's talking about a character. And it's an idea, so it's not, so the sentence, although Frank is confined to a hospital, his world expands in many ways, is not an actual quote, it's an idea, and it's asking you to discuss this. And it's a character-based one because it's talking about Frank, and not a meta-language one because it's not asking you how does this person, etc. All right. I'm just going to go in Menti to bring up the correct question, and I'm so sorry about this, guys. Just give me 1 second. All right, I got it. Some common themes. So this will be a word cloud, and just let me know what you think. So I gave one away and I said love. Let's discuss what other themes are very common in movies and come up a lot. And this can be movies and texts as well. So there are no wrong answers here. Anything you say will be good. Does make sense, and I don't know if that means doesn't make sense. What I mean is, what are some common ideas in movies? What are some common themes? So things that will come up from the text that are not explicitly said. So fate and change, very good. Nature, yes. What have we got? Family, absolutely. Control, abuse of power, grief, definitely. Epic versus the commonplace. That's a very good one. Hope. What else have we got? Death. Yep. Grief. Same. Power. Definitely. Let's see some more people answering. So we have 5 people in here. Let me see more answers here, guys. Control. Yeah. Some very interesting ones you have in here. Love it. All right, so I'll leave this open for you guys to have a go, and I'll just go in here again and just continue. So, yeah, this is what we just did, but in Mentimeters, in Mentimeter. So sometimes it's a bit hard to identify these implied ideas just because it's not something you have been trained to do. So what are some things or some steps for you to take to make this process easier? So first thing you need to do is look at the plot, of course. What are the main plot elements? What's the setting? What are the characters? And what's the most important moment or moments in the text? If, for example, the most important moment is someone's marriage, it might be that love is the theme. If it's someone's death, it might be that grief and loss is the theme. And how does the text end? This is also very, very important. How is the central conflict resolved? So everything is revolving around a central conflict. So how is this resolved? Then you need to look at the protagonist. So who is the main character and what happens to him or her? And how do they develop as a person over the course of the story? These will all lead you to the answer. And look at prominent symbols and motifs and see what are they. So if you have love hearts, the thing is, it might be love that will be the theme of the text. And why are themes so important? Because identifying them and discussing them is subjective and personal, which means that you are bringing your experience into interpretation of them. And this is what makes them so powerful, so unique. So it will mean different things and you will interpret them differently than your classmates. So this relates to that. How the features of selected text create meaning and how they influence interpretation. So how do you interpret them versus someone else? Now, how do we put a theme or use it or put it into a paragraph? First thing, you need to connect it to your prompt. And then this is how you still use till for your paragraph. So talk about the technique being used, the theme, the example of symbolism or the example of the theme. For example, love, the effect of the theme on the audience, emotion, and then linking back to your argument. And this was themes, and now symbols, which are very important for themes as well. Symbols are either material objects or scenes, or can be events as well that represent something abstract. So symbols represent themes. So what other literary technique does this remind you of? What is something that reminds you of something else? Now you can let me know in the chat of this, but this is meta language, so it's a literary technique. And symbols very much remind me of this. So let me know if anyone else is thinking the same thing. If not, that's definitely fine. But yeah, I'm just curious. So what literary technique does a symbol remind you of? A metaphor. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Liviru. Someone said that in the chat. So it does remind you of a metaphor. So a metaphor is something that reminds us of something else that contrasts two things. How are they similar? Well, a metaphor explicitly compares two things, but symbolism requires the audience to look for it themselves. They're similar in the way that they both point to that direction, but they're different in the way of explicit and implicit, implicitly looking for something. Amazing, thank you. All right, now how to identify and analyze symbols. Step 1 is read the passage. This is sometimes the hardest thing. And step 2 is identify any objects you see. There are some well-known symbols, like, for example, as I said over and over again, hearts represent love. The color red might represent love and passion. We have eagles, which is a very common symbol of freedom. So consider the context of the symbol. So as I said before, red can represent love, but it can also represent danger and like, look out, don't go in that room, that sort of thing. So consider the context of the symbol and decide the most appropriate meaning of it, and then discuss until. If there are some symbols that are unconventional, for example, in the text, I am Malala, there are some symbols that represent her love for learning, like, you know, a diary, a notebook. They're unconventional. You don't see them very often. So you need to see the characteristics of the object. So what does it mean? And what's the significance of the characteristics? What does it mean? What context is it in? Like, is it in school? It will help you identify where it belongs and decide on the most appropriate meaning, and again, discuss until. And the way to discuss until is the same as we said about themes. Again, it goes topic, sentence, so technique, symbolism, example of symbolism, effect of symbolism on the audience, and linking back to the topic. And this doesn't have to be a paragraph itself. It can be a little part inside a paragraph, a bigger paragraph that will be talking about something relevant to the symbolism you want to discuss. Please let me know if everything is making sense. If not, you can let me know in Mentimeter if you have any questions. But I'm really hoping this is making sense. All right, so then we have motifs. And this is one of the more uncommon techniques that are used in text. So a motif is a repeated pattern. It's something that is recurring throughout the text, a recurring theme, idea, or message that is very dominant and basically reinforces your theme. Some examples of motif, which I'm hoping this will help you understanding better. For example, finding a Bible at the bus stop and then coming across a featured payment in an art gallery that looks just like that Bible. So this is two different events that both point us towards the same thing. For example, to symbolize a call to God or to religion. This is a point towards the same theme, but with different symbols. So it's a recurring theme, it's a motif. Hearing the phrase, some things in life never change, repeated throughout a story, to push a character to make a change, to show us that change is a theme. This is also repeated, so it's a motif. And then hearing the sound of a dog collar once, twice, maybe 3 times throughout the story, to emphasize the character's sorrow over the loss of a faithful companion, which can be a dog. So motifs can be the same thing again and again, or it can be different things again and again that point to the same thing. This is what differentiates them with symbols. So a symbol will come up once, and it will be one thing, like the same thing, like a hat. It cannot be different things. That's a motif. So let's see the symbol summarized. A theme is something abstract and something that recurs. So you see a lot of motifs that point to a theme. A motif can be a concrete or abstract, and it recurs. And symbols are something concrete. So it's something tangible, that you'll be able to see, that appear once or only a few times in a text. And that's how you differentiate these. All right, awesome. Now, before we go into our break, let's see a quick video and just move around a little bit to be ready when we come back to do some language analysis, which I also love. All right, awesome. Just waiting for this one to load. Can you hear me well, guys? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can. I think I lost you for a second. All right, awesome. Okay, going into our break, let's have a look at this video from our UBS volunteer Ophelia, who will give us one advice for VCE.
Piece of advice I would definitely give someone who is in year 12 studying their final exams would be to try hard. I think I've heard a lot of rhetoric in the past couple of years where people are saying that, oh, you know, it's not the end of the world, it doesn't really matter what score you get, and they're right in saying that it's not the end of the world, but I think anyone would really regret not trying hard to begin with. So just apply yourself, don't leave things to the last minute, and I think I said before, just do a lot of practice exams. That's really helpful.
Absolutely. Well said to Ophelia. All right, let's jump into our break and let's everyone be back at 3:09. Actually 3:08 to watch a little video when we come back as well. And we will be going through language analysis. So stay tuned, go grab some water, move around a little bit just to be ready and energized for the next session, the next section of our presentation. All right, I'll see you back at 3:09. All right. Let's start coming back. Welcome back, everyone. While we're waiting for 3:09, I'm just gonna play our next video for today.
Hey guys, my name's Saskia and I'm one of the maths tutors at Skyline Hatch. So this revision series I'll be taking Spec 3-4. So we're going through all of the main topics on the study design for Spec, including probability, calculus, vectors, etc. So we'll go through all of the content as well as a bunch of exam questions and exam tips and strategies to get you guys through the exam.
All right, so this is about future masterclasses. I think this one is on tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow 10 to 1. So if you're doing specialist maths, you'll be with Saskia. Amazing. So let's jump into the rest of our session. So we have section 2, which is language analysis. And the first thing we'll look at is 2.1 or just 2, which is again the expected qualities. So we have we need someone to show a sophisticated understanding of a range a range of ways in which written and visual language and the use of argument position readers in the context presented. So basically, you just need to talk about all your persuasive techniques, visuals that are used, and how does this position the reader to think, feel, act, etc. And you need to develop a detailed and well-substantiated analysis using fluent, precise, and effective language and expression. So let's see what the things you can do are that will differentiate you from the rest of your cohort, and you will get a high scoring response. So this is the VCAA task description. Analyze and compare the use of argument and persuasive language in texts that present a point of view on an issue currently debated in the media. Text must include written and visual material. So analysis, it's not summarizing and not describing or evaluating or paraphrasing. It's analyzing and comparing, considering similarities and differences between texts, because you will be given 2 texts in your end of year exam. So compare what they say, how they say it, who the authors are, and what their experiences and values might be. The use of argument. Argument is a claim or a premise. So what the author is saying. If it's supported by evidence, how is it presented? So we're talking about persuasive language. What kind of devices are being used and what kind of strategies are being used? And what do these make the audience feel? How do they position the audience again? And texts, what are they basically? Is it an editorial? Is it a cartoon? The second text can be cartoon sometimes. And written and visual. You must work with both images, symbols, layout, as well as written language. So everything needs to be discussed. Some things to think about during reading time. So in your reading time, you won't be able to do your plan because you won't be able to write, and also you won't have enough time. So when you're reading the text, what you can do is look at how does this issue affect the individual, the local community, the wider society, the nation, global community, future, past generations, and basically everything, people, places, other living entities. I have been told that my video is lacking a little bit, so I'm just going to try and turn my camera off just for a second, and then I'll turn it back on, but I'll still keep continuing with the presentation. But I'm glad you can all hear me okay, which is the most important thing. So how does the issue affect everyone? Also, now talking about paragraph structure and breakdown of sample text. And as I said before, in text response, this helps a lot. So what should be included in your introduction? Again, in your language analysis introduction, you need to talk about the type of text that the text you're analyzing is. So is it a newspaper article? Is it an editorial, a letter to the editor? What kind of text is it? And what's the issue? So what has been going on that brought about this discussion? So what's the problem? Why is the writer writing this piece? So something that happened that triggered it. The writer's contention. What is the writer arguing for? The audience, so who is the text targeting? Potential audiences can be students, parents, politicians. It's generally groups. It's not really like all Australians. It's just specific groups. And a brief mention of a couple of techniques that they use. So how is the author actually achieving their contention? let's have a look at a sample introduction. And you need the background information to understand this. So it's a cinema in the regional town of Topdale, is struggling to attract customers and is at risk of closing down. To ask for support, Ava, the cinema's marketing manager, has written a social media post on the Topdale community voice page. Members are residents of Topdale and the surrounding area. So just by reading at the background info, you know your audience, residents of Topdale and surrounding areas. So the growing popularity of streaming services, this is the issue, and the debate as well, has sparked the issue of whether or not traditional cinemas should be supported to remain open. So you can see here issue and debate both in the same sentence. The first one, Ava, the cinema's marketing manager, has published a social media post in the Topdale community page. And this is the type of text we have. Targeting residents of Topdale and the surrounding area, the audience. Ava contends that the cinema should be supported to stay in business. This is the contention, due to its importance in the community. Ava's tone shifts from being passionate to becoming more urgent and critical towards the end of her post. Also mentioning the tone. Did I mention this here? No. Okay, yeah. You also can and would be good to mention the tone in the intro. The two photos which accompany the post support Ava's argument. So this is a brief mention of the techniques as well. Two photos, so visual techniques. All right, awesome. So this was the introduction, and it's a very high scoring introduction. And so what I had been doing when I was in VCE, I used to get all the high scoring responses and just try to follow the same structure and format, just so that I know that I have included everything I need, and I will definitely know that it's a high scoring response because it's on the same structure as the high scoring responses from VCEA. All right, now what should be included in your body paragraphs? Again, you have one of the arguments that the authors will make. So authors will make lots of them. You just need to choose 3 of them to make them your topic sentences. The persuasive techniques with evidence, which is like, what are they using? They're using metaphors, they're using inclusive language, etc. So to support these arguments, the authors will use a range of persuasive techniques just to make the audience believe them. So they will have this effect on the audience. And identify 3 of these and analyze their use. For each one of the arguments, I would recommend analyzing 3 persuasive techniques. And don't worry, there will be plenty. And then you will talk about the effect on the audience. So what are these techniques directed to do? Are these directed to make me feel a certain way? For example, emotive language will be directed to make you feel, let's say, sad or happy or a certain emotion. And how does this help the author's contention? So how do these techniques relate to the author's argument and overall contention? So emotive language will make me feel like a certain way, for example, sad, and that way I will help the author do whatever they're trying to do. Let's have a look at this sample body paragraph. So we have the argument up the top. Eva insinuates that local residents should support Topdale Cinema since it has important historic values. Using a passionate tone, she appeals to the reader's community spirit. So we can see here the persuasive technique and her tone, what she's using. Through the metaphor, again, another persuasive technique, the Topdale Cinema was the social heart of town. And here we have the evidence. Hence, the readers are positioned to feel lost if the cinema is closed down because of its historic role in the community. Here we have the effect on the audience. See how smartly they do this? In addition, through the use of emotive negative connoted words, again, persuasive techniques, biggest threat and victim of stream revolution, Ava also appeals to the reader's conservative values, instilling a sense of fear and insecurity of the potential loss of the cinema. And here we see the effect it has. A photo depicting Topdale Cinema's front with Victorian-style architecture, distinctive features of large white door and white tiles. Again, this is the evidence when you're using visual analysis, further accentuates her claim on the historic value of the cinema. Local residents who love history will feel urged to go and watch a movie in this traditional cinema. So this is what we'll do. They will love to go and watch it. So therefore, she states that Topdale Cinema should be supported to stay open due to its historical significance. And this is how it helps her contention. So, and it links back also to the topic. So this links with this. I'm just gonna try and turn my camera on and tell me if I am still lagging. So we saw a high scoring response. Let's have a look at a low or mid scoring body paragraph, just so you can identify what you shouldn't do. So this body paragraph, and I'll read a little bit of it. I won't read all of it. I don't want to bore you. So David begins her article with the banner for the challenge. Young people see this image and want to participate because poster catches their attention. She then states that climate change is a serious issue. She describes it as a threat, which makes the readers feel worried because a threat is scary. So by reading the one before, we would sort of tell of the issue just by reading at the body paragraph. We didn't really need the background info, but here we don't understand what's going on when we read the first 4 sentences. So there's not really a clear argument, and there's a lack of clear quotes and explanations. So there is no flow in this paragraph. And the visual is not analyzed, it's simply described, the poster. And there's also poor paragraph structure. So they're jumping from one issue to another, and it's not very good for the reader because we are lost in here, and the examiner won't bother reading this like 3 times to understand. So that's why it's not a good paragraph. So yours look like this and less like this. All right, awesome. And now let's have a look at the conclusion. So what should be included in your conclusion? Now, did you know that it's actually okay not to include a conclusion on your language analysis? Because in your actual exam, when you have the 2 texts, the last paragraph can be dedicated to the second text instead of having a conclusion. Now, however, if you're analyzing a single text, your conclusion should be very brief and mentioning the main takeaway. Now, having said that you don't absolutely need a conclusion, I still do recommend including one, but I know sometimes people are short for time. So if you need to rush through something, you can skip this one. But if you do have time, still do it, because I think it's just a good consolidation of what have been said in the essay. So let's have a look at this one. If you're using a single text, the conclusion should be brief. So Ava, I'm just gonna keep my camera off because I know I'm lagging again, guys. Ava asserts that Topdale Cinema should be supported to stay in business due to its importance on Topdale community and history. Through a passionate and urgent tone, Ava targets Topdale local residents, prompting to watch the cinema more often to save it from closing down. So this is exactly what has been said in the essay as well, and it's just the main takeaway, very brief. As you can see, it's only 2 sentences. So don't go crazy over your conclusion. Now let's have a look at do's and don'ts for language analysis. And this one is also very, very helpful. So don't make your language analysis a persuasive technique bingo list. For example, in her opinion piece, Bonnie Norton uses personal anecdotes, attacks, loaded language, blah, 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 to do this and this. So you don't want to just identify it. Instead, you must identify the argument, and the persuasive techniques are there to help the writer achieve like his point, and you need to talk about that instead of just identifying them. So Norton seeks to overturn the perception that pit bulls are a dangerous breed of dog. So this is the argument here. This is what should be identifying. And then drawing on a very personal anecdote, blah, blah, blah. And then you begin to identify the persuasive techniques and talking about what they mean for the audience. You should not lead into it using your persuasive techniques. Next, don't summarize. Like you can see here, Norton argues that pit bulls should not be banned. She claims that they are friendly companions, blah, blah, blah. So they say exactly what has been said by the author, and we don't want to do by the writer, and we don't want to do that. We want to talk about the intended effect. So, for example, having established that the issue of dog bites in the community is not merely restricted to pit bull breeds, and thus having made an attempt to quell the anxieties of fearful readers. So you can see here, they identify what the writer did, but also talked about why they did it. They did it because they attempted to quell the anxieties of fearful readers. And then you'll be provided with slides, so you can go through and read everything if you want to. But that's the do and don't here. Another one, as bad, as mean, or as upsetting what you read might be for you, don't get involved. So don't say, clearly, pit bulls should not be banned, and the author doesn't know what she's talking about. No. So you need to focus on the author's contention rather than getting involved and saying what you think, what you feel about the issue. So Norton is clearly opposed to the proposed ban on pit bull terriers and seeks to highlight to those who do not know much about this breed that they can indeed be loyal and faithful companions. So talking about the author's contention. All right, awesome. So again, if you have any questions on everything we just said, go into www.menti.com and use the code 3556469. This sounds like an advertisement, but it's not, I swear, to ask any questions you might have. All right, and jumping into section 2.2, which we will be talking about persuasive techniques. So what we will do here is we will briefly go through some, and then we'll do a quick quiz with a couple of techniques to see how much you learned from this today. So techniques to make the audience feel something about the message, or else emotive techniques, are all of the below that you can see here, and we'll have a look into them and also the examples as well. So the first one is an appeal to fear. All the appeals here. So appeal to fear. For example, smoking kills in many ways. Quit smoking now. This is an appeal to fear because it wants you to stop. The author wants you to stop smoking. So they're saying that it kills. And of course, you are scared of death. So they're appealing to your fear. Appealing to greed is also another technique. So taxpayers are basically donating, giving money out of the pockets for the infrastructure of roads. That never actually happens. So appealing to your greed, they're saying that they're giving money out of your pockets, like you as a taxpayer are basically donating money, and the roads never actually happen, so you're wasting them. So appealing to someone's greed. And this can be also called appeal to a hip pocket nerve or to financial like interest. The other one is an appeal to fairness. So it's not fair to assume that I will be a poor driver based on my age alone. So this is talking about like ageism and how it's fair or not fair. So it's an appeal to fairness. Next, we have emotive language. So emotive language is basically using very, very strong language that if it wasn't in this sentence, the sentence wouldn't mean the same things. For example, the innocent girl was sentenced to 2 years of jail by the biased court. So if the sentence said the girl was sentenced to 2 years of jail by the court, it would mean that you have no opinion on it. Like, okay, the girl was sentenced to 2 years. Okay. But when you say the innocent girl was sentenced by the biased court, it's emotive language. It makes us feel that's unfair. Like, why is the innocent, if she's innocent, why is she sentenced? And then we have inclusive language, which makes us feel like we belong to a group. So, for example, the decision of the next prime minister is up to us, all Australians. So Australians, like, this is an inclusive language. It makes you feel like you belong to this group that's Australia, and you have a say in the next prime minister. Next up, we have rhetorical devices, which are techniques to emphasize a message. So rhetorical devices are basically like repetition, simile, exaggeration, are things that you do over and over again. So for instance, time after time after time, I have watched this same thing happen. What this repetition does is just plant something into your brain, and it also makes you think that, okay, saying that time after time after time, the author is like tired of it, so it's been done so many times. And then we have simile. So life is like a box of chocolate. So simile basically compares to things. And then exaggeration, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Well, we know that they definitely couldn't eat a horse, but it's an exaggeration. Then we have logic techniques. So this basically just makes the audience feel like, all right, that's a fact, so it's logical, so I should agree. For example, statistics. The average height of a 25-year-old man in North America is blah, blah, blah. It's a statistic, so it's definitely correct. We have examples saying, for example, blah, blah, blah. It's also a logic technique. And expert opinion. For example, Professor Casey from University of Macedonia did a study on this and found that blah, blah, blah. Expert opinion is a very good one because what it does is it reinforces what you are saying by providing someone else that is basically the best that can be. And so the audience is able to trust you even more, and they trust the opinion of that person as well. And then we have techniques that make the audience trust the person delivering the message, like a personal anecdote, which basically makes you feel more connected to the writer. So when I was walking down the street, I stepped on a big pile of water, and that got me thinking, blah, blah, blah. So personal anecdotes make you feel more connected and trust the person that's writing. And inclusive language, again, we are Australians, blah, 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 because it makes you think that you and the writer are in the same group. So if you're in the same group, their interests are the same as mine, so I should actually agree with them. Amazing. This leads us to our next activity. So let's go into Menti and enter the code again. And I'm just going to share my screen to it. We have a few, like a quick couple of persuasive technique questions. All right, let me see some people joining. I only have 1, 2. I'll wait just a couple of minutes for everyone to join us. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste the link into the chat so that you can quickly go in there. All right, I see more people joining. Love to see that. And sorry you can't see me. I'll try to see if I can get a better connection after the break. and I'll put my camera on again. All right, awesome. So we're missing a couple of people. One more person. And look at that, we have like 8 questions to go through so far, which is great. We will answer this shortly. All right, awesome. I'm just gonna start the countdown. Let's see what we have here. Pointing out money wasting behavior is an appeal to patriotism, common sense, or to a hip pocket nerve. What do you think? Let's see what everyone thinks. Yes, it's an appeal to hip pocket nerve. All right, so it's not an appeal to patriotism because money wasting behavior, like wasting your money, doesn't really relate to patriotism. It's more of a hip pocket nerve one. And it's not an appeal to common sense because nobody wants to waste their money. All right, only 4 people answered here. So I want to see more people in the next one. Let's see. All right, last one. Racism is no black and white issue. What persuasive technique is this? This is a metaphor, it's a simile, or it is a pun. Racism is no black and white issue. What is that? It's a pun, exactly. So it's not a simile, because if it was a simile, it would compare. So it would be like, racism is like blah, blah, blah. Whereas now it says it's no black and white issue. So it's a pun. All right, awesome. Next we have some questions, but the questions we will answer in a little bit. I think we will go through. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, let's do question time just for a little bit before we have our time to move it, which will be when we'll be moving a little bit to get our blood pumping. Awesome. So now I will answer some of the questions you already have. For a quote-based prompt, for a quote-based response, do we need to include the quote in the response? So not in the introduction, you don't need to include it, like when you are stating your contention, but you will need to include it in the essay somewhere. So you can't not have it at all. Hope this makes sense. So not in the introduction, you don't definitely need to include it there, but we'll need to have it somewhere. What study score did you get? So we tend to avoid saying study scores in these master classes, but yeah, some common themes in movies, and someone said, tell us. So we went through the common themes, which was awesome. I hope it answered your question. What did you mean by rewarding the topic for intro? So what this means, it's briefly mentioning it. So for example, I'll go in here and show you an example that I had before that was really good for this one. Rewarding the topic is just briefly mentioning it. For instance, all right, for instance, saying it explores a significant role of poetry and music in assisting characters. So here it says discuss the role of poetry and music, and they're rewording it just by saying this novel explores blah, blah, blah by doing this and this. So just mentioning what the prompt is asking, not directly answering it, and then you will answer it and you will state your contention. Hope this makes sense, but I think that's what you meant. All right, going back to the questions. Is it a good way to include quotes in the intro to show the examiner you know the text? So I think including a quote is all right, in the intro is all right. And it also makes it a little bit more interesting, because you're right, it shows the author that you know, it shows the examiner that you know the text, but don't overdo it. So don't write like 2-3 quotes, because I don't think it's very good. It's wasting your time, and at the same time kind of shows the examiner that you're trying too hard. So I think including one, if it fits, is fine, but don't overdo it. Do we use symbols as evidence or as arguments? So if it's a meta language based prompt, so if it's asking you, for example, we had the prompt before that said, how does Satrapi use symbols to explain her word? You would use it, you might have used it as an argument, but you mostly use symbols as evidence, not an argument, unless again it's a theme-based prompt where it might be relevant. So the answer here is basically both, but mostly as evidence, especially in the prompts that are not asking you for symbols or meta language. Having hard time remembering quotes. Any tips on how to remember quotes? That's the best question for me to answer. I love it. So what I did is had cue cards and had like the theme and the theme or like specific context I wanted to use this quote in, and at the back of the cue card I had all of the quotes listed. And so when I needed to write an essay, I looked at the front and the back and just read all the quotes that were, for example, I had a theme that was like loss and all the quotes related to it. And because I read it over and over again, trying to write essays, then I remembered it much more clearly. Like it came to me like an image when I was in the exam. So I think you will be able to do that to remember quotes better. Cue cards, themes or characters or anything that you might be able to relate a quote with, and then the list of all the quotes. Azara, if you have any other tips, please join in as well. Sorry, I think I didn't give you the chance to do that. Do you have any tips on remembering quotes better? You're on mute, Azara.
So I was saying the cue card method that you used, I use the same method, and I think it helps remembering certain codes for certain themes.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's really good. So use it, and yeah, you won't lose. Any tips on finding the arguments like in a speech where they don't clearly break the paragraphs? Tips on finding the arguments. The arguments will be surrounded by all the evidence, all the persuasive techniques, etc. So are you talking about the listening task here? If you are, give me a thumbs up in the chat. But if you're talking about the listening, because I'm just trying to think in a speech, argument analysis in a speech where they don't clearly break the arguments, where they don't clearly break the paragraphs. I can't think of any that I have come across where in a language analysis that do you have any ideas, Azad, on this one?
I'm not sure about this one.
like with their argument and start. Okay, so basically think of it as like their contention. So their contention will have their arguments. I'm just trying to explain it the best way I can, and also considering like what you said, where they don't clearly break the paragraphs. Just think of it that way. Don't look at the evidence, so not the persuasive techniques, but look at the things that have been said before that the person is trying to justify. So if they have said, for example, and they're clear, like the clearly said sentences. For example, pitbull terriers should be banned because they're very dangerous. So because they're very dangerous will be like an argument, or because blah blah blah. So the reasons they give for their overall contention will be your argument. So try to find reasons. This is my tip, and I hope it helps, because I haven't come across, I think I know what you mean now, like in a speech where they don't, like they're not in the top of each one of the paragraphs. So try to identify the reasons. And that was all for now for our questions. So what we will do now is go back to our presentation and have a little bit of a move it time. So I want to solve, oh, sorry. I need to find where we are. So I want us all to start, just have a little bit of time for us to come back and bring all our energy back. So let's have a look at this video. I think this is mine. I'll be leading the psychology session tomorrow as well. So if anyone is doing psychology, I would love for you to join in. It's 10 to 4 tomorrow.
Hey, my name is Tiana and I will be leading the psychology exam revision session, where we will go through all of the points in the study design, teach you tips and tricks on how to answer questions effectively to get full marks, and help you ace the exam this year. The exam revision series is a perfect opportunity to see everything you need to know about the exam, make sure that you know everything and you don't have any gaps in knowledge, and ask questions to recent graduates who will also sat the same exam as you will be. I am currently studying psychology and I really love it because it answers the questions of why and how do different processes happen in our life. For example, how does memory work? How does learning works? Which is what we will be going through in the exam revision series. A study tip for me, which I am still doing with all my learning objectives, would be to get all the points from the study design and use them in your note-taking when you are revising for the exam, just to make sure that you know everything. Highlight the important aspects and the key words, and then go underneath and just write all your notes, and yeah, just make sure that you're familiar with everything, because study design really is very important for you. Thank you for watching. We're very excited to see you in the VCE exam revision series this year with Skyline Hatch.
All right, and now it's time to move it. I know that I can't see any of you, but I can feel the energy in the room going down. Someone is asking if I can send the link for psychology. Absolutely. So if you go in here, let me just go to the end of the video. You can go into skyline.org.au to sign up, or you can use the QR code that you can see in the video right now. All right, awesome. Now, before we have another quick 5-minute break, we are going to use some time to move it because I know I can't see you, but I can feel the energy going down. I can feel everyone is getting tired. It's been 2 hours. So let's do some dopamine clubs. Dopamine clubs are very good because they just help get your blood moving throughout your body and just increase your energy. So I'll start. Azada will join me, and we hope that everyone will be doing it behind the camera so that we're not ridiculous. So let's do 10 jumping and clapping your hands above your head so that you get moving. I think I'm gonna do more. All right. Awesome. And I hope everyone did it because I feel much better now. My video was frozen. That's unfortunate. So you didn't see my dopamine claps? All right, I hope everyone did it anyway. So I was just jumping and clapping your hands above your head. All right, awesome. I'll let everyone go for another quick 5-minute break just to grab some water and, you know, just have a mental break. And let's be back here at 3:56. And I'll see everyone then. All right, let's welcome everyone back. And while we do this, I'm just gonna start sharing my screen again. And watch a little video.
Hi, my name's Susan and I'm one of the English tutors here at Skyline Hatch, and I'll be running the Ransom and the Queen Masterclass for comparative text response. This masterclass is essentially just a deep dive into Ransom and the Queen. So we'll kind of look at analysing each text separately, then we'll look at some really good examples of comparisons to answer different essay prompts, and we'll also look at some high scoring and low scoring essay responses to Ransom and the Queen comparative prompts. I hope to see you there.
Awesome. And you can register for this bonus masterclass. And if you're EAL or English, it doesn't really matter. You can still join the English Ransom and the Queen one just for the comparison between the texts. And you can still join through skyline.org.au. I am aware that my video is still lagging, so I'm just going to try to change into my hotspot again. If you give me 1 second. All right, hopefully it's better now. So let's move on to what we have prepared for you next, which is analyzing visuals. And this is also one of my favorite parts to present. Don't ask me which one is not my favorite, because everything is, as I've been saying. All right, awesome. So analyzing visuals, this is very important because sorry, everyone, I dropped out for a second. I'm just going to start sharing my screen again. Can you hear me and see me well? All right, awesome. You can see me and hear me. I'm just gonna restart sharing. Sorry about this, guys. Sorry about the little technical difficulties we're experiencing. Awesome, visual analysis. Okay, so you need to analyze your visuals every time. So even if it is just like in one of your paragraphs, which it will be, you need to talk about it to get a high scoring response. I can see that my screen is still loading. Is it the same for you? Okay, awesome. I think now we can say it. It's sort of different. All right, I'm so sorry about this, guys. All right, moving on. So how do you analyze your visuals? Some things you need to do, or some questions you need to answer, is who or what is the image or in the image, and how is it related to the overall issue? So you need to know these in order to be able to analyze them. And also, what is your attention drawn to in the picture? And why is your attention drawn to that? Is it because of the size, the position, or of the language that is being used? And why is this element important? Is it because it plays a role in what the author wants to say to you? What is the main subject of the picture, and what attribute of characteristic of this subject is being emphasized? For example, in cartoons, sometimes people tend to exaggerate, so they might draw something, the artist might draw something that's much bigger, like the ears, to represent someone who is who wants to hear everything, wants to know everything. So for what purpose is this done? How are we as an audience meant to feel? And how does this link to the contention of the overall written piece? And some quick questions to ask is, what has this visual been included in this piece in the first place? So how does it add to your knowledge? Why has it been included at this specific point? So is it in the middle? Is it at the start? Is it at the end? Which of the author's arguments does it link with? And what can I see in the description? Like, is there a description, and what does it mean? And does it link with any other aspects of the text? For example, a headline. Is the headline the same as the visual? Look for the link between the written and the visual material. Now, all of the next slides that we're going to go through is things that you need to analyze. First one is the context and the position of the visual. So to fully understand it, you must understand the purpose. Sometimes, just by reading the background information that accompany the task, you know what it is about. So you will see the background info, and this will be your context. But some other times you'll need to read through the text, and then you'll understand it better. So then you'll know the context of it better. So is the visual, and then the position of it, is it at the start to elicit empathy or shock, or is it in the middle because it wants to reinforce a particular piece of evidence or reason? For example, and this is very often the case with graphs, they tend to be in the middle because the written language says that 30% of people, for example, happen to do this and this, and then there is a picture of a graph, and it reinforces it's there as evidence because it reinforces this. Is it at the end to consolidate the argument as a whole and to reinforce it? Is it a frame or border to the written piece that contributes to the overall tone of the text? Like if there's a border, it might be very formal, or it might be a blog. Alternatively, if the visual is a completely separate text from the written piece, and what does this mean? This means, is it your second text? Is it a cartoon? Is it something that has been there for comparison with your main text? Does it present the same or a different point of view of the issue? Sometimes it can present the same as well. The other thing you need to analyze is color. So there is warm versus cool colors. So warm colors like red, orange, and yellow represent, or actually make the audience feel warmth or comfort, or depending on the context, anger or embarrassment. And then we have cool colors, which is blue, green, and purple, which represent more of calm and tranquility, or sadness and misery. So this is why context is important, because it can be different things that represent. So something to ask yourself is, how does the color or the shading of the visual contribute to this meaning, to the meaning of the text? So also be aware of the design elements. So for example, if you have a web page, there might be like something different in the design, or it might be that they have a specific border that you will need to talk about because it will add to the tone. Then we have photographs, and there's a lot to talk about when you're talking about photographs. One thing to ask yourself, I'm going to start you with that, is what would the impact be if I changed an element of the photograph? For example, if the focus on this picture was at the girl at the back and not the camera, it would be completely different, I think. So answering this question will give you a better insight on what the photograph is intending to achieve. So things you need to look out for. Is it a low angle shot? Is it looking up at the subject? Or is it a high angle shot, looking down on the subject or straight on? For example, a low angle shot of a child might give the impression that they have been able to overcome adversity or achieve success. So low shot angle, remember, is the one that's looking up at the subject. So you are looking down in the photo. Whereas a high angle shot might suggest that a person is vulnerable or remorseful. Look at whether the subject is in the foreground or in the background. So here, the camera is in the foreground. Whether elements are blurred or in soft focus, whether there's a filter, and as we said before, filters are meant to elicit feelings as well. Where the horizon is placed in a landscape shot. If the horizon is far away, it can signal isolation or opportunity, again, depending on the context. And what is actually in the frame and what might have been left out. So for example, if there's a photo of like a family and you see the mom and dad holding the mom and the child holding hands and someone is cut off, it might be talking about, divorced parents, etc., etc. So there might be things that have been left out of the frame. Another thing that's very interesting to analyze is charts and diagrams. And one thing to ask yourself is, how does this information relate to the written text? How does it support or contradict it? I don't think charts or diagrams will contradict what has been said, just because they're not usually used as second text, so only in the main text. So then they contain numerical information, as you know, and they're used to present evidence. So charts and diagrams, as I said before as well, tend to be in the middle of the text because they accompany evidence. So they accompany persuasive techniques like expert opinion and everything that's facts. You're not in a position to question the data, but you can explore how the information and the way that it's been presented are used to strengthen it. Some things that are good to watch for is what the visual elements suggest and how they connect to each other, whether there's a background image. For example, if there are statistics about gun violence, there might be an image of a gun beneath the statistics. Whether data is attributed to an authority, for example, Australian Bureau of Statistics, the ABS, which is also expert knowledge or statistical evidence. And sometimes it can be look dry and intimidating for a reason. So you're meant to explore this reason. Again, any questions on this? Jump into Menti, and I'll be aware that there's a new code now because we've reached the second part of the presentation. The code is now 1848-1936. And now cartoons. So a great source of satire and irony. Cartoons can be used as second text, but also as a first text. I believe the year when I did my exam, we had a second text as a cartoon. I don't recall, but I think so. So there are a lot of things that you can look at. First is context again. What is the issue? What has been happening? Why is this cartoon here? Next is the comment. For example, over here, is there a political or social comment? It's usually one of the two. Then the contention. So what is the author what is the artist trying to tell us? And the contention is usually a little hard to identify in the cartoons because a lot of them are satirical and ironical. And you might think that what they're saying is actually their contention, when in reality, it's the opposite. So if you identify their tone, if it's serious, funny, dark, chances are you'll be able to identify the contention easier. Then we have use of irony, situational versus linguistic, and then size of the feature. So which feature is exaggerated? Here we have a huge leg. So this is an exaggeration here, and it means something. If the nose is exaggerated, it might be that, you know, they're lying like Pinocchio. So you need to look for the size of the features. Let's practice on this one. And then I have a Menti one as well. So let's practice on this one. Guns cause all of this trouble. We have a family here. We have two parents that say guns cause all of this trouble. And a child that's playing video games with guns and saying, kill them all. So what's the context of this cartoon? Gun violence. So we can see here there was a school massacre, and that's why the parents are saying that guns are the problem here. So these are the comments. But what's the contention of the author? It's not to say that video games are very fun and kids play them, look how happy they are, or that guns cause all the trouble. That's not their contention. Their contention is that, you know, while the parents are here saying that guns cause all of this trouble, they ironically let the child play with this video game that's very violent, and they in fact are causing this trouble by raising the child, looking at guns, etc., etc. So it's all like connected, but at the same time there's irony here, so it's not very easy to identify these connections. So the best thing to do for practice is just to look at many of these, read their explanation, and yeah, etc. So the tone here, of course, is ironical. All right, let's go into Menti. There is a new code, sorry about this. Go in and enter the code 1848 1936. And Azad, if you can put that in the chat as well, that would be amazing. And I'm just gonna go in there in part 2 as well. And yeah, and also let me let's see. I'll wait a little bit for the rest of the people to join us. We were waiting for another couple of people. Consider the visual image with the context of veganism. How would you best describe the tone of this visual image? And we have an image here that's saying, dig in, everybody. And, run this by me again. I'm sorry, I just realized the time was not enough. But ironical, satirical, sarcastic, and mocking, that's definitely correct. And how do we know this? Let me bring the photo up. Okay. just realized I don't know how to turn this music off, and that's very annoying. Okay, so let's have a look at the photo. The photo is saying, dig in everybody and run this by me again. I'm faint from the heat. We were flirting in the barnyard and somebody chopped off our heads. So it's in the context of veganism. And what do you think? So it's satirical because it's supposed to be a conversation between like the person and the food here. So it's saying that, you know, eating meat is bad, etc. And that's why it's used in this context. So let me just go back into the presentation. All right, so I hope analyzing this was good practice and doing this activity. So we have one more here. So imagine you're reading a text published on your local newspaper that urges people to donate money to help farmers during droughts. So you see this picture below, and it was taken during the Great Depression in the US to capture the reality of farmers during that time. The picture is called The Migrant Mother. How would you analyze it? So first we need to look at how, who, or what is in the image. So as we can see from the background, it's the migrant mother. And how is it related to the issue? It is related because she was a farmer at the time and there was a drought. And as we can see, we don't see like the family in the best state they could be in. So our attention is drawn to that, the mother and her facial expressions. Is it because of the size, position, or language? It's because of her position and because she's in the middle of the picture like this. And it's important, this element is important because it shows us the reality behind the drought and how the farmers actually were. So what is the main subject? We said the mother, and what attribute or characteristic of this subject is being emphasized? It's her forehead, I would say, because she has a very distinct facial expression we can see, and this is being emphasized for the purpose of us understanding that she's feeling sad, you can say devastated, you can say her facial expression says a lot. So we are also meant to feel, this is meant to elicit emotion in us. And this links to the contention of the written piece because we feel that way, we are more likely to donate money to help the farmers during droughts. This is a very good example because if you just go through all of the questions, you're able to actually write a small paragraph analyzing them. Awesome, which brings us to section 3, which is the listening task. Now, what we will be talking about in this section is common mistakes. We'll be talking about what the listening task is. For example, here. So it's approximately 3.5 to 4 minutes in length, and it's either a monologue or a dialogue. And if it's dialogue, it will be between a male and a female speaker. Not that this really matters for you guys. So it consists of short answer questions and possibly a table. Sometimes this happens as well. And it provides, so you will need to use standard Australian English. And final exam texts include radio interviews, conversation between friends and neighbors, motivational speakers, and online chat. It can be a lot of things. So this is outcome 3, but this is just for what you did in school. This is not the end of year exam, and it's comprehension of a spoken text, short answer responses in note form summaries. All right, so there is a common misunderstanding that the listening task is straightforward. all you need to do is listen. But in reality, that's not the case. And let's look at the VCE key criteria for the listening task. And let's look at all the things you need to do well in your listening. So identify, record, and organize literal and inferred meaning in spoken text. So not only you need to understand what they're saying right now, but you also need to understand what they mean by using certain language. Use contextual information to support understanding of the text. Identify and explain the relationship between the speakers and the audience, the purpose of the text, and the speaker's views and attitudes, and how these affect the structure, language, and delivery of the spoken text. So all of these are things that you will need to explain, but are not explicitly said to you. So you'll need to understand them through the meaning of the text. Use references to the text to demonstrate your understanding. So examples, use written and visual material where available to support your understanding. This is not relevant to ours. And apply the convention of spelling, punctuation, and syntax of standard Australian English accurately and appropriately when demonstrating understanding of spoken text. This is something you always need to do. Just be a little bit more mindful. All right, so what are some things that you can do to ensure that you comprehend the text? First, carefully read the questions during your reading time. So if you are able to read them, remember the question, sometimes when you hear the answer, you know which question it is for. So you straight go there, answer it, or write your note, and then you can come back and answer it. And it just helps a lot. Don't listen to answer, listen to understand what the text is saying, because in a lot of examples, and I'll show you some later, it will ask you to answer some questions that you cannot answer just by listening. You need to understand what it's saying. For example, describe the relationship of the two characters. You won't be able to say by just listening to it. You will need to understand it. Now, the next question is, how do I get full marks? This is easy in a way. You just need to look at the amount of marks that a question is worth, and this is how many points you need to include. For example, we have here one that says, what does Joe see as the purpose of his talk with the recruits? Give one example of language use or delivery to support your answer. So 2 marks for 2 sentences. What does Joe see as the purpose? So answering this, he sees blah, 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 and 1 example. And the example of language use is blah, blah, blah. Here, from this tip, give an example of a strategy. Only 1 mark, so just 1 example of a strategy. This is how you get full marks. Now, let's see some common questions that shouldn't tend to answer incorrectly and what the real meaning is, and how to actually try to do your best in answering those and getting full marks again. So first one is support your answer with 1 piece of evidence from the text. This just means use a quote or a word or a phrase from the text. So an example from the text to support your answer. So something that you have gotten straight from in there. Give an example of the character's indirect language. What does this mean? This refers to an expression of the content in a longer or unclear fashion. For example, if you say, oh, well, if you go into a shop and say, oh, well, I'm just browsing, you mean I don't need any help in reality. Or if you say, I'll think about it, that might mean no, thank you. So this is the indirect language, saying something but actually meaning something else. So the examples of indirect language would be these ones here. The other one, give an example of delivery and language used to support your answer. So the example of delivery is the one that's been bolded, and language use is the other one. So delivery is the way that you say something, and language use is what you actually say. For example, using repetition, being repetitive, is the example of delivery, and then saying no, no, no is an example of your language use. Or using imperatives, do not do this, using fast pace, using pauses to show that you are indecisive, placing emphasis on words, using increased volume, rhetorical questions, and again, emphatic tone. So this is the example of delivery, and the other one is the example of language use. Another one is describe the character's tone. So all you need to know here is the examples of the tone words. We have a big table, and in the language analysis, I think I'll show it to you after this. But if you know all the tone words and what kind of tone they describe, you'll be all right to answer this one. Yep, here you go. So the other one is describe the interaction between characters. You have example of positive interactions and example of negative interactions here, just to help you understand and sort of just like get some examples that you will be able to use as well. This just asks you to identify, you know, how am I interacting with the other person that's talking, for example. You need to answer how the characters are interacting. So are they genuine, direct, smooth, efficient? Are they intimate? Are they friendly, caring, polite, and kind? Or on the other hand, are they disrespectful? Are they awkward, tense, strained, defensive? We have unpleasant, sarcastic, damaging, and unfriendly. All right, so as we went through these common listening task questions, I have an activity for us, which is a listening task. So I will get everyone to go in I'll get Azada to post a link in the chat where you can go in to get this task, just so that while we're listening to it, you don't have to wait for me to skip to the next question. So Azada, if you can post it in the chat, and it should be in the, yeah, that's awesome. I'll get everyone to go in here. I'm just gonna press it as well so that you can see what you'll be looking at. This is from the 2020 EAL exam. That's the text from the listening task. So I just want you guys to know where you are and how well you're doing right now and you're listening, so that you'll be able to, you know, practice more and improve after the session. And we'll go through the questions, we will listen to the text, and then we will answer and say why this was the correct answer. So let's read the questions all together, and then I'll go through and play it. So Lee is a cafe manager and is interviewing Taylor for a part-time job. Lee owns a chain of cafes at different locations in the city. And the questions are, at the start of the interview, when Lee talks about his business, what is the main emotion that he communicates? Support your response with an example of how his delivery shows his emotion. I got a question to zoom in a little. Yes, thank you for saying that. I assume it was a problem for more people, but I highly recommend for you guys to download the resource or go in and see the resource as well. So here we can see 2 marks, 2 questions. What's the main emotion? And then example of delivery that shows his emotion. So you need to answer with 2 sentences. Next, give 2 reasons that Taylor gives for wanting to work in one of Lee's cafes. Again, 2 marks for 2 reasons. Why does Taylor want a job? 2 reasons, again, 2 marks. And Lee's opinion of Taylor changes when Taylor asks him questions. In the space below, outline what Lee's opinion is before Taylor's questions. Give an example of Lee's delivery that shows his opinion. So before, an example, and then we have after. Give an example of Lee's delivery that shows his changed opinion. after Taylor's questions. So 1 and 2 again for 2 marks. And these are all the questions we need to answer. And I'm going to jump in here again, but I will be stuck in this slide over here because this is the audio that we'll be listening to. But you guys need to scroll, oops, not this. You need to scroll down here and answer the questions. So just mark your answers in a piece of paper, and then we will do a Menti for you to answer me and tell me what you got. All right, awesome. Without further ado, I'm gonna start playing the audio, and I can't wait to hear what everyone got for the questions.
Thank you very much for your application, Taylor. As you know, my cafes have been very successful for a very long time, and we have been voted the most popular cafe chain for people under the age of 25 in many surveys. We only employ the best, most enthusiastic people who fit with our style. To begin with, tell me a bit about yourself and why you applied for this job.
I've just finished high school and I'm planning to go to uni next year. I want to gain an insight into the food business, and I'd like the best experience I can find with a successful brand. I applied for the job because I know how successful your cafes are and how delicious your food is. I am a regular at your cafe, so I know what I'm talking about. At school, I studied business management with the idea of going into business after I've completed a business course at uni. The food business seems to me to have a good future, so I thought it would be great to learn from the best.
That's great. Yes, we think we're the best, but it's nice to hear it from someone else. Now, what skills do you think you could bring to this job? We have a lot of people applying to work here. What makes you better than others?
To start with, I'm a hard worker. You just have to ask my referees. I'm also punctual and I get on well with other people. I'm a leader. I was a member of the student leadership team at school. I'm also a quick learner. All I need is an opportunity and I'll repay you with hard work and enthusiasm. I admit I don't know much about food apart from eating it, of course, but I am very keen to learn, and I know I'll do that in a short period of time. If you employ me, I'll be a committed employee.
If we were to offer you a job, would you be able to start soon?
I could start anytime you want me to. As I said, I've really no commitments until March, when uni starts.
Well, we have a number of jobs at several of our cafes. As you can imagine, we're interviewing quite a few people for these positions. We'll let you know as soon as possible. Have you any questions you'd like to ask?
Could you tell me which cafes are likely to have vacancies? I don't have a car and don't want to have to travel too far to get to work.
We're not certain where we have vacancies as yet, but it's likely to be at some of our city cafes and in some of the northern suburbs. I hope those locations are suitable for you. Anything else?
Yes. I'd like to know what shifts would be available. I play basketball and I can't let my team down. I'm one of the best players. I don't think I could work on Friday nights. And what would I get paid? I want to save money for a car and an overseas trip. Also, I want to save for when I'm at uni.
Of course. Like everyone else, you'd be paid the appropriate hourly rate given your skills and experience. The shifts could vary each month or sometimes week to week. I must employ someone who can be flexible. Have you any other questions?
No, I've found out all I need to know. Thanks.
In that case, thank you for your time. I have many other people to interview, so I'll let you know the outcome of this interview early next week.
All right, awesome. Now, as always, a 2-minute little break for you guys to jot down your answers. and then we'll play the video again, the audio again, and then go through the answers. So I'll give you a minute and a half, 2 minutes. All right, I think we're good to go for the second time. So I'm just going to start the audio again.
Thank you very much for your application, Taylor. As you know, my cafes have been very successful for a very long time. And we have been voted the most popular cafe chain for people under the age of 25 in many surveys. We only employ the best, most enthusiastic people who fit with our style. To begin with, tell me a bit about yourself and why you applied for this job.
I've just finished high school and I'm planning to go to uni next year. I want to gain an insight into the food business and I'd like the best experience I can find with a successful brand. I applied for the job because I know how successful your cafes are and how delicious your food is. I am a regular at your cafe, so I know what I'm talking about. At school, I studied business management with the idea of going into business after I've completed a business course at uni. The food business seems to me to have a good future, so I thought it would be great to learn from the best.
That's great. Yes, we think we're the best, but it's nice to hear it from someone else. Now, what skills do you think you could bring to this job? We have a lot of people applying to work here. What makes you better than others?
To start with, I'm a hard worker. You just have to ask my referees. I'm also punctual and I get on well with other people. I'm a leader. I was a member of the student leadership team at school. I'm also a quick learner. All I need is an opportunity and I'll repay you with hard work and enthusiasm. I admit I don't know much about food apart from eating it, of course, but I am very keen to learn and I know I'll do that in a short period of time. If you employ me, I'll be a committed employee.
If we were to offer you a job, would you be able to start soon?
I could start anytime you want me to. As I said, I've really no commitments until March, when uni starts.
Well, we have a number of jobs at several of our cafes. As you can imagine, we're interviewing quite a few people for these positions. We'll let you know as soon as possible. Have you any questions you'd like to ask?
Could you tell me which cafes are likely to have vacancies? I don't have a car and don't want to have to travel too far to get to work.
We're not certain where we have vacancies as yet, but it's likely to be at some of our city cafes and in some of the northern suburbs. I hope those locations are suitable for you. Anything else?
Yes. I'd like to know what shifts would be available. I play basketball and I can't let my team down. I'm one of the best players. I don't think I could work on Friday nights. And what would I get paid? I want to save money for a car and an overseas trip. Also, I want to save for when I'm at uni.
Of course. Like everyone else, you'd be paid the appropriate hourly rate given your skills and experience. The shifts could vary each month or sometimes week to week. I must employ someone who can be flexible. Have you any other questions?
No, I've found out all I need to know. Thanks.
In that case, thank you for your time. I have many other people to interview, so I'll let you know the outcome of this interview early next week.
All right, awesome. How did everyone go with this one? I guess I'll find out now when we'll be doing the mentee answers to this question. So we will go through the answers and then we'll just talk about why it's the correct answer, what you could have done differently to get the right answer, and yeah, that sort of thing. All right, awesome. So if you all jump into Mentimeter with the code again, and I'll put it in the chat. Go to this link, and I can see 3 people in there right now. I'm just going to wait for everyone to join us, and then I'm going to start. So the first one will be question 2A. At the start of the interview, when Lee talks about his business, what is the main emotion that he communicates? Support your response with an example of how his delivery shows his emotion. So you need to answer 2 things. And I've put in the correct answers in here, but it's likely that the way you write it might vary. So we'll go through what the correct ones were. All right, I'll give everyone another minute to join us and then I'll start. But I don't want anyone to miss out, so make sure you're in. I think that's a very good text to do as an example because it has all the different types of delivery and like language use questions, which are, I think, the most challenging ones for students. So it's good that we're doing these as examples. All right, I'm just gonna start. Correct answers, yep. So question 2A is this one. So type in your responses. You have 40 seconds. And when everyone has typed, we'll see the answers. All right, let's see what everyone got. We had pride, proud tone. All right, so 1 mark for pride, confidence, enthusiasm, and 1 mark for pacing of delivery, pausing, emphasis, and upbeat tone. So loud volume, yes, we would get that as correct because it's upbeat tone, and pride also correct. So this question is correct. Yeah, change it now. We have pride and proud tone. So pride would be correct, but you would get 1 mark for it rather than both of them because proud tone is not an example of delivery. So delivery would be upbeat tone, pausing, or emphasis. So half a mark for this one, or 1 out of 2. But good try, guys. I want to see some more people answering in the next slide. And we have question 2B, which is give 2 reasons that Taylor gives for wanting to work in one of Lee's cafes. So 2 reasons, 30 more seconds. Let's see more people answering, guys. Two reasons for 2 marks. That's not very hard. Why does she want to work in his cafes? Insight into business. Okay, so here we had a lot of
good, successful answers. So you didn't need to answer only she knows how successful the cafes are. So I'll tell you all of the correct ones right now. So she knows how successful the cafes are. She knows how delicious the food is. She's thinking of going into the food business after uni, and she wants to learn from the best. So what you got, wanting to get an insight into business. Yeah, I think it would be considered correct because she's thinking of going into food business after uni. It's all right, but I would phrase it differently next time to get full marks. This one also, but because it says she's doing a business course, because I think this would be exactly the same as the other one, and she thinks his cafe is the best and loves eating his food. So this one is actually correct. She is thinking she knows how successful the cafes are and she knows how delicious the food is. This would be it. So for this question, you needed any two of the following. So this would be 1, and this would also be 1, and this would be 2 marks. So well done. Well done. And here you would just need that extra 1 to get the full marks. But good try, guys. And let's look at the next question, which is, why does Taylor want a job? Give 2 reasons. I think this one is actually a little bit easier. Why does she want a job? Give us 2 reasons. And you have 30 seconds to answer. Let's see more people answering us. 1, 2 answers. Why does she want a job in the first place? What does she want to save money for? All right, time's up. Let's see. Overseas trip and saving for uni. Buying a car as well. So this is not the only one. Wants to get experience, overseas trip, food business in the future. So this one was, why does she want a job? And the correct answers, as you can see here, was go buy what she wants to save money for buying a car, going overseas, or uni. So overseas and saving for uni, this would be 2 out of 2. Well done. She wants to get experience. This would be a no because she wants to save money for something, and that's why she wants the job. And this would also be a no because, again, she wants to save money for something. This was one of the reasons why she wants to work in his cafes. So that's why this, if you had answered this before, it would be a 2 marks. Awesome. Let's look at the next question now, which is question 2C. This one in the space, outline what Leigh's opinion is after Taylor's questions. Give an example of Leigh's delivery and so his changed opinion after. Oh, no, that's actually, we need the before as well. So 2C to DI before Taylor's questions. So opinion before, let's see. Impressed by the skills of Taylor, you can see this. He's confident in her, very approachable and impressed by the skills of Taylor, use slow pace. So don't mind these, sorry about this. I think it's the incorrect matching of the questions, but impressed and uses slow pace. Let's see. He sees Taylor as, so the question actually was, what's his opinion before? So how does he see Taylor. So he sees her as friendly, keen, enthusiastic, or interested. And you can see that because his tone was friendly, pleased, and warm. And he used a rising intonation, like, would you be able to start soon? What you have answered here was impressed by the skills. That's correct, but how does he view her? And use of slow phase, again, was not in one of the answers. And he's confident in her and saying very approachable. So you have used an example of language here, but we wanted an example of delivery. So he is confident in her, but we wanted, how does he view her? So he views her as like interested in the work, keen, friendly. So unfortunately, none of these two got any marks, but good try, guys. Let's look at the next one as well. And the next one is, what's the opinion after Taylor's questions? What's his opinion about her after her questions? And what's an example of delivery that shows he's changed his opinion? And remember, example of delivery, how do we see that? All right. Now this is an open question, so you can just answer freely, and we will discuss the correct answers. So you can answer whenever you want for this one. I'd say that she's not suitable for the job, and he used a hesitant tone. He's disappointed in her, saying, I hope those locations are suitable for you, in a distant, formal, and sarcastic tone. Now, let's look at the question again. Outline what Leigh's opinion is after Taylor's questions and give an example that shows changed opinion. So what's his opinion of her? Remember, you're not saying what he thinks, like he's disappointed. So you want to say what he thinks of her, that she is. Let's have a look at the answers. He sees her as self-interested, that she's only wanting to make money, that she's not interested in the cafe, and that she's inflexible and too demanding about where she works or the time she works. And how can you say that? Because of pace, slow, hesitant pace. And well done over here, hesitant tone, and she's not suitable for the job. That's correct, but you needed to have answered how he views her. So as in, that's his self-interested. So you get 1 mark for this one. Distant tone, disappointed tone, a bit doubtful. I think for this one you would also get 1 mark, and distant tone you would also get 1 mark here. All right, now as you can see here, responses that just gave Leigh's conclusion that he wants to hire her, or he's impressed, or he doesn't want to hire her were insufficient. All right. Thank you so much for answering, guys. Now it's time for the next part of the Q&A. Let me just see if we have any questions. We actually don't have any questions yet, but if you have any, now is the time to put them in the chat and we will answer them. But while you do this, or if there's anyone that doesn't have any questions, let's look at the sessions for tomorrow, which are psychology and specialist maths. If you're joining psychology, I can't wait to see you there tomorrow. And if you're doing specialist, I know the session with Saskia will be amazing as well. And let us know what you think. Now, if you have a phone, you can scan this QR code. It would be amazing if you do this quick survey and let me know how you think this presentation went, what you liked, what you disliked, because it helps me get better every year. And it will also help like next year's cohort and just generally help us really improve. So we do really appreciate your feedback. And if Azara can also paste the survey link in the chat, that would be amazing if there is one. Otherwise, you can just scan this via phone and it will take you there. I think that's pretty cool. Yes, and if you fill out this survey, you'll get a chance to win a $50 voucher, which is pretty good, I think. And winner will announce Monday, October 4th at 11 a.m. as Azia said. So good luck on this, and also thank you, because we really do appreciate your feedback every time. I hope you enjoyed this session very much. Let me see if there are any questions for us. What did you do the day before the EAL exam? I did a practice essay, because I think the more practice essays you do, the better you become. So I did a practice essay and then I rested pretty much, because that's also really important. You don't want to stay up late, nervous about the exam, not get enough sleep, and then when you are in there, your brain won't work. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to get like a brain freeze. So you know what I mean? So yeah, rest well and do a lot of practice. How do you stay calm during the EAL exam and not panic, stress? So what you can do is just, of course, one thing that helps a lot with that is being totally prepared. So if you go in there feeling 100% sure about yourself and knowing that, okay, I know the texts, I know how to answer any question that will be given to me, and just being confident that you will do well, a little bit of stress will just, you will be relieved, because when you know that you're ready, you don't tend to panic. But another thing you can do is just take deep breaths on the day, just read through it, because when you read through it, you realize, okay, it's not that bad. If you're talking about when you go in there and feeling very nervous. Another thing to think about is that if you're nervous, you won't do as well on your essays. So you want to be able to relax a little bit to do well and write good quality essays, because a lot of people write mid or low scoring essays because they are very stressed and they don't know what they're writing. Azara, do you have any insights? So what did you do and how did you stay calm during the EAL exam?
For me, when I was doing the practice exams, I would always stress over the time. Like I might not finish on time. And the key to that is, like, if you break down the paragraphs, like say like 15 minutes per text response body paragraph, if you break your time down, like I literally wrote it at the front of the exam, like 40 minutes listening, like an hour this one, and then 10 minutes reading, 10 minutes planning time. That helps a lot, and it helps to maintain your calmness and not stress over like not finishing on time.
Definitely, yeah. Planning helps a lot, guys, as well. So keep it in mind too. All right, awesome. So has everyone completed the survey? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you have, and good luck for your chance to win a $50 voucher. But let me see if anyone hasn't completed yet. If you can please do this now before we go, that would be amazing. And then we will let you go and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.